Welcome to the very first episode of Uncle Adam's Miniature Hot Mess down here in the very hot mess that is the Nerd Bunker. I want to make this kind of series really talk a little bit more about saving some sort of interesting model from the clutches of the internet, generally eBay, and then getting it and then giving it a bunch of love in some fashion so that it can be a better looking miniature when it's all finished. This first inaugural episode, it's going to be two-parter because I'm going to talk first about kind of like what I did to, clear it all up and get everything ready and then primed, and then the next one we'll be talking about the actual paint job. So I have a death army that I'm working on for Age of Sigmar, and I kind of wanted like a cool Vampire HQ unit, and I thought, well, I'll start looking around and see what's available. Well, as it turns out, there is an interesting is a good term. There's an interesting figure for the death. It's called a Vampire Lord. It's an older model. Nowadays, if you can get it, you can only order it from the website, and it comes in not exactly fine cast. So it's a resin. It's not a material that I particularly want to work with, especially with that skinny sword and that giant honkin' wing. It's an interesting model, but I just didn't want to go with the kind of resin version, so I started looking on eBay, and I eventually found one on eBay, and I ordered it, and I received it. Well, I received most of it. If you saw on the GW official image, there's this sort of weird impish thing kind of behind the big Vampire Lord's head, some sort of little creature. And that creature did not seem to come along with the rest of the model that came from eBay. And this is kind of standard. Now, I'm okay with it because I don't really like that little impish guy to begin with. I wasn't going to probably use him anyway. So the fact that he or she, I don't know, but the fact that it didn't come along is okay with me. So after taking stock of the model, finding out what was there, what wasn't, first job number one is stripping off this paint. The person who painted it, I kind of liked the cloak color, I got that, but the fact that this wing was such a bright electric blue for no reason, I don't have any great pictures of it. I don't have any cool studio shots of it. I just sort of shot it down here in the basement with my cell phone. But it doesn't really warrant a good shot. I mean, it wasn't poorly painted. I've seen worse, certainly. But, man, that blue, I just don't understand where they were going with that. So that's going to all come off. I used this stuff, which I'm kind of in love with now. It's called LA's Totally Awesome. This is not an ad or anything, but you can get it at a dollar store. It's like 32 ounces, and it costs $1, hence the dollar store part. I put it into my ultrasonic cleaner and ran it a bunch. I got this new ultrasonic cleaner, and I don't know that it's working properly because it's not as loud and vibrating noisy or whatever as my other ones. So I don't know if it's really working. I put it in there, and I was sitting here hobbying, and then I would reach down and I'd push the button because it has like about a 6-minute run time, and then it stops, and then you have to push the button and let it go again. I don't know. Normally, if I'm going to use my ultrasonic cleaner, it's because I want to get it cleaned real quickly so I can start working on it. And I was doing that, and then life got in the way and work and this and that and other thing. And then he just sat in the LA's Totally Awesome in the ultrasonic cleaner for like 4 or 5 days. So really, the ultrasonic part may have not necessarily done much extra work. I don't know. We'll see. The trick is that when I took that guy upstairs and started trying to get the paint off, it just sloughed off. It just came off like it was amazing. I just literally just hot water from the tap took most of the paint off of that model. There was a couple little nooks and crannies I had to get at with a toothbrush, like an underarm kind of area and stuff like that. But man, that stuff worked like amazing. And the parts came apart, not necessarily, like I didn't lose any parts down the sink or anything like that. Pro tip, if you are trying to get stuff off of the model and you're running water on it, have like a bowl or something underneath so it doesn't just go directly down inside the incinerator thing, whatever, the food, muncher inside your sink if you got one of those, because you don't want to go down there looking for it. So, yeah, Luckily, I didn't have that issue. I was able to just kind of just work them all a little apart a little bit. It had loosened all the glue bonds, but not too much. And I took him apart, and it worked out great. I let him dry, set him on some paper towel, let him dry. Like I said, I had to get a little bit of extra stuff off here and there. I did take an X-Acto to kind of get some of the leftover glue and the joints off so I could have a better fit. And then once he was dry, I went back to building him. Now here's the thing. I don't like his head. If you go back and look at the GW like official paint, the head, he's got these weird big ears that go up and these real sharp cheekbones, and I just didn't like the look of it. So I thought, well, I'll have to start looking through, my bits and all the parts and all the things. Whenever you build models, if there's leftover heads or arms or guns or anything, keep all that stuff, generally, because there may be some time when you got to build a vampire and you need to find a better head. And that's what I did. I found a head from, I think it's a mantic ghoul. And the thing that was cool about it is that it's sort of, he had kind of like a high like hairline and then a bit of a, I don't want to say a mullet, but he kind of had like a little bit of a ducktail thing going on back there. And I stuck him on there and it worked out pretty well. It reminds me a little bit of that guy from those Underworld movies. I want to say it's Bill Nye. Or not Bill Nye the Science Guy, Bill Nighy. Anyway, but nonetheless, it worked out pretty well, and all the parts went together, back together pretty well. I made sure to add in a little tiny bit of green stuff here and there, like in between the metal bits, so that they would kind of stick a little bit better. Just really tiny little bits, just kind of hold it together as the glue dries, and that worked out pretty well. And then after that, it was time to prime, and I just primed them all black. And then I went to town with white primer because I want him to be relatively pale in some places. The armor will be probably metallic, so that wasn't as much of a problem. But I do want that big wing to, first of all, not be electric blue. I do definitely want it to be something, and I haven't quite figured it out yet, but I figured that having it be lighter versus darker will probably, be better for it in the future. Like I said, I sprayed white over the black so that I could kind of feather it a little bit as it got towards the little, the little bony parts in between the wing panels, or I don't know, I'm not a vampirologist, I don't know what those parts are called, but that stuff is kind of, I wanted to kind of fade to the darker parts there and kind of do that. So I did some work with the airbrush, and I will probably start with glazes to see how that looks. And if I catch it right, I might just only do glazes on the wings, and then it'll have a nice sort of transparent fade, and it will look like I'm a much better blender than I actually am. So this is where he stands right now, and I'm looking forward to trying to figure out exactly how I want to do it. I think I want the cape to be maybe gray, maybe purple. I know I want it to have some dirt and probably some blood splattered on it. So I don't want to make it too dark. If it's too dark, the blood won't work on it. I want that sword to be really super bright silver. He's not going to have a normal grungy sword like a skeleton might, or an orc or anything like that. It's going to be highly polished. So I'm probably going to use Vallejo Model Air Chrome, probably, because that's a super bright, super smooth, really nice. I really, really like that paint, and I think that'll work perfectly for that sword. But I haven't decided whether I'm going to put some blood on it or not. Anyway, I've got some things to think about with the model, but now that he's done, I've got to travel for this upcoming week. But then hopefully the next episode, you'll see the finished product, and I'll be able to explain how I got the paint to where it ended up, and give you some more information about that.